Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Gridiron Grind with Andrew and Lance. Today's episode, we're going to touch on the latest news. There's not a whole lot going on. It's kind of the calm before the storm. We got some quarterback talk on the quarterbacks of this draft, touch on some interesting thoughts about what they mean for their coaches that they get drafted by. But we're going to start here with a little quarterback talk. Shador Sanders and Jackson Dart. There are some rankings, there are some sites that have Jackson Dart like the fourth or fifth highest rated quarterback, which I don't see that. I'm okay with him being ranked three, but no lower than that. I mean, I think we're kind of in the same ballpark where we kind of think he's possibly should be in the same discussion as a Shador Sanders, not a gap like they are right now. Um, I'm not against Shador being ranked higher than him, but it shouldn't be that far. But Jackson Dart should definitely not be at number 4 or 5. He is at least the third best quarterback in this draft coming up.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what you're pointing out there, Andrew. I just wanted to pull up the stats to make sure I'm not
Yeah,
speaking out of hand here. But
yeah,
and actually, let me do one more. Um, I wanted to pull up
yeah.
Cam Ward's stats as well because if we're going to talk about all three, we should really have all
hmm
three quarterbacks
That's fair.
numbers in front of us as we're looking at it. But
hmm
um,
Yeah, I know Cam
uh,
Ward had a lot of touchdowns, but they might have been a little inflated. And he is an athlete. He is an athlete. He had some rushing touchdowns as well. I want to say like 17 in the past 3 years in that range. I don't know the exact number. I'm sure he'll get those. But he is probably the best overall athlete of the three, but he's not like a dual threat guy. He's not like a Jalen Hurts or Lamar Jackson. He's not like that. He can use his legs if he needs to. I'd put him in the same athletic ballpark of like let me think of a good comp. Um, Maybe like a Herbert, like a Justin Herbert. You don't see him running much, but he can. If he needs to, he'll break out of the pocket, he'll be gone, get you 10, 15 yards.
I think that sounds fair. I just was trying to find. Oh, here we go. I just wanted to have the stats side by side, looking at them.
Okay.
I mean, that can't be right. Um, for Shador Sanders for 2024 on ESPN, it says that he had negative 50 rushing yards.
Oh, so the college game, sacks get counted against your
Oh, the
rushing
Souths get
yards.
counted against him.
Yeah,
That's so
which
dumb.
actually that is stupid. I agree, but it actually shows that he gets sacked a little bit. Shador Sanders, he's not great maneuvering in the pocket. Not so. I'm just saying, there's a little negative on
Well,
him.
I mean, the crazy part is like, so the reason I was like, wait a minute, there's got to be something wrong is that you look at
Mm-hmm.
Jackson Dart's rushing numbers. He has 495 rushing yards.
Mm-hmm.
And like, it's crazy that you go from, I mean, so, because like you're looking at Shador's numbers, right? And this is like looking from 2021 to 2024, it's
Mm-hmm.
negative 17, 173, negative 77, negative 50. Then we come over to Jackson Dart, it's 43, 614, 391, 495. I mean,
That's fairly consistent. Yeah.
but it's weird how different it is because, like, I mean, think about going
Mm-hmm.
into this draft, and maybe you're going to say something different here, Andrew, because don't quote this as gospel, but um, I've I've almost heard from most of the people I've talked to of putting Shador in a more running category than Jackson. Like that's the narrative. I'm not saying that's the truth, but I feel
Mm-hmm.
like there's a narrative out there
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that Jackson Dart is not this mobile quarterback. Like he
Right.
can move with his legs, but he's not like he's Daniel Jones. Like that's kind of like what I envision in my head when people talk about Jackson Dart is like he can get
Mm-hmm.
around with his legs, but it's not very pretty. It's not very you know, skillful. Maybe a bit of a Carson Wentz esque vibe from the talks about him because
Okay.
Carson
Okay.
Wentz wouldn't go
Yeah.
down the field for like 60 yards like Jalen Hurts does, but Carson Wentz was really good at like popping out 10 yards here, 15 yards there.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like one of those like Patrick Mahomes. Everyone's deep. I'm going to take
Right.
the free 15. Thank you very much. So that was just kind of surprising pulling that up real quick. Let me go to Cam's real quick. I mean, for
Yeah, I'd be
Cam,
interested to see his.
it's 261, 58,
Okay.
144, and 204. I mean,
Yeah,
but like
yeah.
that goes
That
back
makes
to your
kind of
point
sense.
though.
Yeah.
But like if when Jalen Hurts came out and Lamar Jackson came out, if the rushing category was so big for why they should be first round quarterbacks, I don't understand
Hmm.
why I don't feel like I've heard the same narrative about Jackson Dart. Like I feel like when people have
Hmm.
brought up analysts about him being a draft pick, it's like he shouldn't really be a first round pick, but the need might be there. And like there's not been much discussion about the running game, but you look at those numbers, I mean,
Yeah.
he's got some legs.
Yeah. That's fair. That's fair. All that I've heard with Travis Hunter, not Travis Hunter, excuse me, Shedeur Sanders, same team, but is that he's really good in the pocket, and I don't know if I truly believe that he's such a great pocket passer. Like everyone's saying, he's great vision, great accuracy, he's great decision maker. I don't know. I don't know. Something just doesn't seem there for him. And I don't know if it's me not being a huge fan of his because I really can't stand the whole watch thing that he does on the sidelines. That's really dumb. That's really immature. And his dad just eggs him on. That's not smart. I don't know if it's that. Maybe I have a bias against him, but I don't know. Something just doesn't seem like it's pro ready. He's a great college quarterback, but just something in the back of my mind just thinks, I don't know if this is going to be a great pro quarterback. And also the situation. I mean, if he gets drafted by the Giants, he's going to possibly sit behind two older quarterbacks and not really learn a lot and be in a system and a team that's really not going anywhere at this moment. So as we saw with like a Sam Darnold and a Geno Smith, if you're in a bad situation, your career is in jeopardy. And that could very well be the case if he goes to the Giants or even at two to the Browns. Their situation isn't much better. They have a defense, but that's about it. As opposed to Cam Ward, I know the Titans have the number one pick, but I kind of like some pieces the Titans have. I kind of feel like they might make something happen. Not flirt with the playoffs or anything year one, but I like Calvin Ridley. I like Tony Pollard. They got some pieces. They're working on their O line. They have a great O line coach. So I kind of like what the Titans are doing. So I think Cam Ward, I mean, that's almost a given that he's going one. I think he has a chance, but I don't know if I like Shedeur Sanders' chance.
Yeah. The one thing I'm interested to see, because I was thinking about this, I couldn't remember the other two receivers off the top of my head for Tennessee, but they have Traylon Burks. And that one is so weird to me because I feel like he has potential from the
Yeah,
moments I've seen him, but the injuries just continue to pile up. And
yep, that's
at the
it.
worst times, he starts getting in a groove
Mm-hmm.
because like I think it was
Mm-hmm.
against the Eagles that he got a concussion. And in that game,
Probably. Yeah.
he was like looking really solid, gets the concussion, is out for
Mm-hmm.
like 3 weeks, and then comes back and is
Yeah.
just like off of the groove. I think
He
Van
was supposed to be the
Jefferson.
AJ Brown replacement. Because that's the pick that they got when they traded him to the Eagles is that pick and then picked up
Yeah,
Treylon Burks and just hasn't like I said, you can see it. You can see the talent. It just hasn't completely flourished and injuries have just kept backing him up as far as his progression. And it's disappointing because you definitely can see there's talent there. There's something there.
but the best ability is availability and reliability. So,
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
if it's a 3rd and 7, do you really want to throw that pass um, to Burks? And at this point, I mean,
Hmm.
because like you look at the other options for them, and I'm only bringing this up because you're trying to think about like where's a good fit. I think Van Jefferson is
Right.
a sneaky, like good receiver.
I've always kind of liked him as a number three. Maybe a number
Yes,
two, but number three for sure. He's excelled at that role.
yeah,
He's that speedier kind of guy, run downfield, stretch the defense. I've always kind of liked Van Jefferson as well.
yeah. He reminds me a lot of, I don't know if you know who he is, but a lot of Eagles fans know him. His name's Jason Avant, and
I do recognize that name.
he was like 2008 to 2012, but
Hmm.
he was like the third down reliable
Hmm.
pass catcher. Would just get those passes reeled in, move the chains, keep moving down the field.
Hmm.
Um, and he just kind of gives those vibes to me as far as like when I watch Van Jefferson, kind of in the same
Yeah.
way. But I do agree with what you're saying about Tennessee. One other part I did want to mention too, Andrew, just out of fairness to these players. their yards are very similar. So like
Okay.
Sanders is
Hmm.
4,100, 4,279 for Jackson Dart, and then 4,300 for Cam Ward, like give and take in between those
Yeah, it's
numbers.
basically the same. What's their
Um,
touchdown interception ratio?
37 to 10 for Sanders, 29 to 6 for Dart, 39 to 7 for Ward. But like
Okay. I
there's
would,
something
yeah,
we got to keep in mind here though. And I'm not trying to be a hater, but your level of difficulty and schedule is a big factor into that play, right? Who did you do
it's
this
very true.
against?
It's
And
very true.
we got to give some props to Dart in the sense that, he went through the SEC gauntlet. Like, I guess if I was going to rake schedules, I'd say that Dart probably had the hardest. I'd give Sanders the
Hmm.
nod at two, only because I feel like the Big 12 is overall, right? Like the overall talent of the Big 12 is better. And then I put
Yeah.
ACC three because, like, it feels like to me the ACC is like three teams that are good, and then everyone else is just kind of like there. They're not
Yeah.
really like, because I mean, even last year in the Big 12, Kansas was like a legitimately good
They were
team.
sneaky. They were
Uh,
sneaky. Yeah.
I mean, they
And they
really
got
like
some
they did
players in
not
this
go
draft
down
too.
fighting.
Hmm.
So I guess that's kind of hard. So like I
And
guess
when you're someone like Shadir Sanders and you have that bright spotlight on you all the time and you bring adversity on yourself like he does, like people want to beat you badly. And for him to play that well, you got to give him credit for that.
well, and I think that another part too you got to factor in with Sanders is I give him major props for choosing to play in the final game of the season against BYU.
I like, yeah,
Um,
that's true.
um,
Yep.
because tying this back to Cam Ward, Sanders played the whole
Hmm.
game. It was not going well. It was not looking great. He didn't
Hmm.
go up to the coach or to his dad and say, "Hey, pull me out. I'm done. I don't want to keep doing this."
Hmm.
Whereas Ward, dude, I'm not a fan of getting my records padded and making sure I reach my goals and then backing out
Hmm.
midway and saying, "Hey, I'm not going to keep playing out of injury concern." I
Yep. Yep.
Is it surprising to you that that's not more of a red flag? I'm surprised that teams aren't going, I don't like
Yeah.
this. What's he going to do in a
Yeah.
contract year?
Yeah. I just think that sometimes teams overlook some of those small details that can be important, like personality and leadership. They see raw talent and they think, hey, this is rare. We can try to coach up the rest, but sometimes that stuff's not coachable. Sometimes you are who you are. They are who we thought they were.
I love when you bring that out. We need the
Hmm.
like the sound machine that just automatically plays the Green quote for us.
We need to get that. We need to get that.
So maybe we'll just dub that in there for everybody. I I guess it's just like, so I factor in the characters part too, right? Because
Hmm.
people are saying that there's this gap between Sanders slash Ward and Dart, but
Hmm.
like I'm not filling the gap. Like when I watched the games last
Right.
year, I didn't fill a gap. I'm not filling a gap in the
Hmm.
stats, but I am filling a gap in character issues,
That's
right?
very true. Yeah.
So like why does that not matter to the national some national media, but it matters, to
Hmm.
you and me, right? As we're talking about it. So this actually brings me to something else I want to bring up. I really
Okay.
wish that there was a draft analyst out there, and I don't know how you would grade it. Maybe it's you call it the reliability category.
Hmm.
Like how much can you trust this person in like big game moments and staying out of legal trouble and not having an
Hmm.
injury problem, like some type of reliability thing, and just fairly raking them. Like I'm not talking about basis of background, like where they came from, or I'm just saying
Hmm.
looking at their on the field performance. Have they kept their records off the field clean? Do they operate in a way that your people want to like be around them and be inspired by them and follow them? Like I
Hmm.
wish that there was
Hmm.
something like that in the draft process, and I feel like it's a disappointment it's not. So like, um, for example, I didn't realize about this, but I think it's James Pierce Jr., the football player that's
The
coming out
edge
this year from
rusher.
Tennessee.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
didn't know this. Someone brought it up to me, or like that I was listening to. But he actually got pulled over. He looking for. I just want to I want to share this correctly.
Hmm. I think I
He
know what you're talking about. It rings a bell.
he
It
was
rings a bell.
speeding in a 63 miles per hour in a 35 miles per hour zone. He was on an
Mm,
expired tag. He was
mm,
driving with a suspended license and said that he failed to prove identification or proof of insurance. Like, I'm not trying to. I don't want to be unfair to players, right? Like, because Jalen Carter's on
hmm.
my team, and Jalen Carter had a spotty past. I'm not going to
Right,
make it sound like I'm not going to try to be a hypocrite,
right.
but like, how does something like that not end up in a profile, right? Some type of category that says, not only
Yeah.
did this guy get pulled over, he didn't have a license on him, and he was driving with a suspended license. He was driving almost 30 miles over the speed limit in a pedestrian,
Hmm.
because anything that's 35 miles and under is considered pedestrian area. That's where like
Hmm.
there's enough pedestrian traffic, which is
Hmm.
extremely dangerous. And like driving with an expired tag, like you just add up all these things. So like let me expand on this. And I'm like I said, I'm not trying to pick on one player, but I found out from reading another news article that James Pierce at the combine did not have the proper,
Hmm.
like he didn't have his shirt, like the official combine shirt to wear for the draft,
Okay.
because
Hmm.
he forgot it. And people are
How
bringing
do
up
you
the fact
forget
like,
that?
but that's my whole thing, is that he's getting props because he ran this incredible 40 speed with a hoodie on. And it's like, okay, I understand wanting to give props for that, but why
Hmm.
is there not a discussion about how did you forget your shirt? Like,
You're going
I,
to the combine, and that's one of the biggest things about the combine is the uniforms you get, and you forgot. Are
I
you
don't
going to
know.
forget your playbook when you're going to practice and going into
Well, he
your
won't be Rasheed
meetings?
Rice. Maybe that was unfair
Well,
for
you
me to
hope
say.
not. You hope not.
Um, I don't know. It's
Man,
so tough. And like, uh, James Pierce, what he did is in a different category than Cam Ward. It's not a one for one, right?
right,
And like, I
right.
think if I'm even remembering right, I forgot about this, but I think was Mike King the one that got in trouble with the sexual assault allegation? I can't remember.
I'm not sure. I know Isaiah Bond, the receiver from Texas, is in a little bit of that right now, but he's not a high draft pick. Um, I don't know about anyone
Oh,
else off the
Mike
top of my
Green. I meant
head.
to say Mike Green.
I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
he's been accused of sexual, and this is Mike Green, the defensive end, the edge rusher from
Okay.
Marshall. He's
Hmm.
been accused of sexual assault twice. And
Mm.
like I said, I don't want to get into the did he or did he not. That's not my point. My point is
Right.
that I don't understand how like we have all these draft experts. Like,
Hmm.
so tying it to a story in the past, when Jamarcus Russell came out, there was no denying the talent level. There was no denying the
Hmm.
ability. But I'm sure you've heard the story, right? Of that he was given that DVD to go home and watch and to come prepared, comes back the next day, basically lies straight through his teeth. And the coaches tell
Hmm.
him there was nothing on there. And it was a character test, strictly a character test. And
Hmm.
but that's why it matters. That's why you have to
Yep.
ask these questions. And that's why, like, again, going back to Cam Ward, why is no one bringing up the fact that he pulled himself out in the middle of the game? Like, why is this a I'm not saying it should be a huge factor, but why is it not like, hey, let's
Hmm.
just take a moment, pause, have a quick conversation about this, about does
Yeah.
this matter? Does it not matter? And it kind of feels like people are just like, he's so talented, it doesn't matter.
It's unfortunately it gets to that point. I mean, a good comp, not necessarily with off-field issues, but with he's so talented and so athletic, it doesn't matter. Look at Anthony Richardson. He was drafted, what,
Yeah.
number five? Was it? I think it was
Yeah.
five, wasn't it? Or 10? Yeah, it might have been five. And I
Uh,
mean, you can't deny he is a freak athlete, but he can't throw the ball. And he's
Fourth
proven that.
overall. So
Fourth
close, Ian.
overall. Oh, fourth. That's even worse. But I mean, I try to give him some hope last year. Like last year, I was like, okay, because he 1 year in the NFL, maybe he's developed. I'll give him one more chance. And last year he proved he still can't throw. So I'm out on him
Mhm.
now. But the NFL saw this when he was at Florida, I think it was,
Mhm.
where he just was very inaccurate. Just so raw talent and athletic. And they took a chance. They said, we're going to draft him the fourth pick. I mean, if you draft him the second or third round, all right, that's those kind of guys. You take a higher chance on them, develop them, but they spent the fourth overall pick because of potential and ability. And it kind of ties into the same discussion where a lot of things just get ignored because this guy has a lot of talent, a lot of ability. If we can just wrangle in this other stuff, we could have a stud on our hands. And they kind of ignore it instead of thinking, could this continue to happen? It might. So we need to be careful of that. So yeah, I like where you're going. Maybe, you know what? Maybe we should develop something. Maybe that should be on us because no one's done it yet. Maybe we should get some kind of score.
Well, and like I thought about it, maybe it should be a pass or fail grade, right? And that way we don't fall into the
Mm,
stupid, A through F scale because and
mm-hmm,
maybe that's because it could get a little pedantical. Maybe you're like maybe you really
mm-hmm,
like this person because they're like Tim Tebow, right? I think Tim Tebow got extra love because of how vocal he was about his religious beliefs, which
mm-hmm,
there's nothing wrong with that. It's awesome that you're passionate about your beliefs, but I don't want it
mm-hmm.
to become a thing where it's like, well, you're just rewarding people because you like them, right? And that's not what I want it to
Yeah,
be. I just think it has to matter. Like it has
it
to
should
matter
count.
because
It
especially
should
like a
count.
quarterback, right? Of all
That's the
positions at
leader of the team.
quarterback,
Yeah.
eh, you
Mm-hmm.
know,
I agree.
because like another quarterback I was thinking of here is I don't think Jared Goff gets enough credit for actually being a draft success. Think about in the
Mm,
in the grand scheme of things, he's drafted as the number one overall pick,
mm-hmm.
and Sean McVay did a really good job of making him sound like he was a broken toy. There was definitely PR coming out from Rams land that he's a broken
Mm-hmm.
good, he's got nothing left, and he totally rebuilt himself. Like he reminds me of Alex Smith. He's like the modern day Alex Smith,
Totally
continuing his
fair.
career
Yeah.
and showing that he belongs in the NFL. And
Mm-hmm.
to me, that's a reflection of character, of grit, and
Yeah.
this I'm not going to give up just because you say that I don't have any potential.
Mm-hmm.
And I like Jalen Hurts, I think is in a similar category where his his willpower was not properly weighed out when teams were deciding whether or not
Yep.
to draft them.
Those
And
intangibles. Yep.
well, because you talked about Anthony Richardson, right? But to tap out of a game, I just I'm trying to I'm trying to imagine what do you think was Shane Steichen's first reaction? Do you think he
When he
like
saw him on the sidelines, like, what are you doing? Are you hurt? No, coach, I'm just tired. What? I don't
I
know.
just I don't know what my reaction would be as a coach, but I
Mm-hmm.
would be dumbfounded. I would be just
Mm-hmm.
straight up dumbfounded if that was the case. And um,
That
so
might have been the
I get
moment when the coaching staff was completely done. They might be thinking, hey, it's not looking too good. We're gonna see what he does the rest of the season. But when that moment happened, they might have thought, all right, we're out. Let's just get through this season and try to do something else, which now they're on the Daniel Jones train.
yeah, that's
That's
really
going
going
to
to
be a
fix all
fun
their problems.
competition. That's going to be a fun competition. Daniel Jones versus Anthony Richardson in the offseason.
Well, I hope that Anthony Richardson took it as a compliment because like he just has to beat
Mm.
Daniel Jones. If he can't beat Daniel Jones, he's not one of the best 32 quarterbacks because Daniel Jones is probably
Hmm.
33 right now, maybe 34, like the 34th
I
best
don't know.
quarterback.
He had like 3 months in quarterback rehab school. He might show
Yeah, but
something different.
he never played. He's not Sam
Hmm.
Darnold just because he was with the Vikings. We cannot treat
Hmm.
him like that.
No,
So
and again, he only had like 3 months. Everyone thought that he was going to stay this year and be the backup and truly go through a complete maybe 360 with Kevin O'Connell and see what Kevin O'Connell can get out of him. Like I said, he wouldn't be playing, but at least maybe his mechanics can get worked on, his confidence, what he's looking at and seeing on the defense, all that stuff. Um, but he didn't. He chose the money. He chose the opportunity to start, which I don't think that was the right decision. I think he should have taken another year, work on himself, then take a chance in the next offseason. But, we'll see what happens. I think Minnesota offered him like 8 million or 9 million, and then he took like a $12 million deal. So he didn't take a whole lot more. just a little bit more, but he wanted the opportunity to start, and he knew it wasn't going to happen in Minnesota.
Yeah. So tying this back to the quarterback discussion, because I don't want to get
Yeah.
too far off the rails, and I'm totally to blame, Andrew. This is my fault. How would you rank these three quarterbacks? Maybe top five quarterbacks. Do you got top five quarterbacks in mind for this draft?
Hmm. Man, that's tough. That's tough. I would still put Cam Ward one,
Hmm.
but I would say kind of like a barely a one. Like I think Ward, Sanders, and Dart are in the same tier. I would put Ward at the top of the tier. I'd probably put Shador Sanders number two in that tier, but then I'd put Dart right there with him. Like if you're ranking the top players, Cam Ward might be 10, Sanders might be 14, Dart might be 16. Something like that. They are close. Just bam, bam, bam. Cam Ward shown he has better potential, at least physically, as a quarterback. Shador Sanders proved that he can play against some good teams and he can throw the ball really well. But Jackson Dart showed that he has a good attitude, he has good leadership, and he's got a little bit of dual threat to him. So that's where I would go with those three. Um, After that, man, I'm not a huge fan of the rest of this class. I think Tyler Show is okay. He probably is four, but I think it's a drop off. I think that first tier, then it's like decent drop, probably like end of second round, top of the third round for me. Um, I don't know who I would put next. Maybe a Will Howard. I think he's a little underrated. I think he's projected like sixth, seventh round, but he is a prototypical pocket, good arm quarterback. Reads defenses, gets the ball out where he needs to. Just basically a typical, really good backup. Someone that if your starter gets hurt, oh, and we're going to do, hey, he's out for 3 weeks. Okay, get us 2 wins. We'll be good. And Will Howard, I think he can do that. So I think I put Will Howard five. But it's a drop off from those top three for me.
Yeah, yeah, I get what you're saying. I just, I have a hard time with this, Andrew, because I agree with you on the
Yeah.
talent level.
Hmm.
I can't. Like, here's another aspect I thought about with Cam Ward. Um, how did Miami not make it to the playoffs?
That's a
You
great
know,
question. They had a ton of talent.
how but like they had it all lined up before them. And I know that people would
Hmm.
say it's unfair to put it all on the quarterback, but I mean,
He makes the most difference in the game with for any position. The quarterback
well, I mean,
does.
just look at the Vikings, right? Like, you had competent QB play, and look how much farther your team went compared to when you had Kirk Cousins out last year. Or,
Hmm.
when the Eagles switched from Carson Wentz to Jalen Hurts and how much that
Yep.
transformed things. Or look at the Raiders, who have been just absolutely in a dumpster fire because they can't figure
Hmm.
out the quarterback position. Saints can't figure out the quarterback position. Bryce Young,
I got a
even
great
though the
example too.
Panthers has been off track, and sorry, go ahead.
No, no, you're good. You keep going. I got a really good example when you're done.
I was just saying, because I know the Panthers are struggling, but if I'm a fan, the way that Bryce
Hmm.
Young looked last year, I am so excited because
Oh,
there's
100%. He looked
real
like he was
potential.
starting to get it. He was starting
Yeah.
to get it. His first year, he looked lost. That was concerning. But the second year looked like he was starting to get it. There's legit potential there now. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
The one I was going to point to, and you're going to say I'm a homer, but look at Michigan.
Mm,
Michigan the year
mm,
before, very
mm.
similar team to this year. Who was drafted last like the year before like last year's draft from Michigan? I don't even know if there's really anyone. I think Blake Corum, their running back, was
Mm-mm.
drafted to the Rams, I believe.
Yes.
But that's really the only one I remember. There might have been an O lineman or something. There's always like an O lineman.
Yeah.
But
Uh-huh.
this year they have four guys potentially going in the first round. Two defensive linemen, they have their tight end, and they have their cornerback. Four first round picks. And this year, instead of going to the playoff, winning the title like they did the year before, they went 7-5. What's the difference? Quarterback. They had a bad quarterback this year as opposed to last year. And you can point to the coach. That's very fair because they didn't have Harbaugh this year. But last year, they had a really good quarterback that knew what he was doing, that could carry the team when they needed him to carry him. And this year they didn't. And it's pretty much the same roster. And instead of winning the title, they went 7-5. So that really does matter.
Yeah. I mean, you could easily look at the examples of the Steelers and the Buccaneers. Two different franchises that I feel like
Hmm.
are going in a different direction. Where Buccaneers feel to be trending up because they have a quarterback's position figured out. Steelers seem to
Yep.
be going down because they just have no.
Unless the Steelers get a Jackson Dart, like we keep thinking about
I
that makes too much
I like
sense.
it, but like I factor in everything, and I will keep Cam Ward at one strictly because of the fact that
Hmm.
there is talent that if they just tap in, that it could work.
Hmm.
I'm going to give the edge to Dart and make him my 2A.
Okay. I'm fine with
I
that.
think that there's just a little bit more there that I like.
Hmm.
And I'd say that Sanders is 2B, and I'm trying to think of my last two.
Hmm.
I don't understand why Dylan Gabriel from Oregon is not getting more appreciation.
I think it's because of his size. I think he's a little bit smaller, if I remember correctly. But that should not be a
Yeah,
real reason. But that is the reason, unfortunately.
but that's so silly because you watch,
Hmm.
I don't know, to me, watching Dylan Gabriel last year, I was blown away by the talent that he was demonstrating.
Hmm.
I
I
really,
saw him
really liked
firsthand
the
the year
way he
before at
played.
Oklahoma. Yeah,
I think he's a great quarterback. To
he
me,
is.
I
He
put him
is.
at 4. And
Okay.
that last spot, I feel like you could argue Ewers, you could argue Howard. For me, Jalen Milrow's arm is it's just not there enough.
He's
I
Anthony
don't see
Richardson all
enough.
over again.
Right. But people keep comparing him to Hurts, which I think is not a fair
That's
comparison. I
silly.
don't think I
Yeah.
mean when Jalen Hurts was at Oklahoma, like I think what part of the thing that hurt Jalen Hurts was that he kind of was under the radar at Oklahoma and no one watched his tape,
Mm.
like really
Hmm.
dug into it. Or maybe they thought like it's only 1 year and they focused
Hmm.
so much on the Alabama, but they weren't
Hmm.
the same quarterbacks. The quarterback of, the Hurts quarterback at OU was not the Hurts quarterback at Bama. Like there
Absolutely.
was absolutely potential there. One
Hmm.
of my favorite plays was when he was getting like tackled and he like literally took the ball from behind his back and passed it from one arm to the other to keep the play going. One of the
Hmm.
coolest highlights
Hmm.
from when he was there. And I remember watching it and thought, wow. Um, but I don't know. I just feel like the Jalen's or Milrow's a project.
Yeah.
If I took him in the
Yeah,
third round, I'd feel
100%.
good about it.
Yep. Yep. Third, fourth round. That's fine. As long as you have a starter, you know is going to be the starter and he can be your project guy behind the scenes. Perfect. That's something that you
Yeah.
can work with. But he better not play any football this year. He is not
Yeah.
ready.
No, no. Well, he can run for his life. So if he has to do that, he'll be just fine.
And then he'll come
I,
well off the sidelines because he's tired.
I hope not. Oh man.
I have an interesting thought on this take.
Uh-huh.
Where would Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, Jack Start, all these guys, where would they rank in last year's draft? Because last year's draft was
Ooh.
stacked. This year's draft is
Oh.
nowhere near that. My personal opinion, I'll let you think about it because I've already thought about this a little bit. I think that Cam Ward is probably number 6 because it'd be like this, Caleb Williams, all the talent in the world, just in a bad situation. Maybe he'll be better this year with new coach. We'll see. But Caleb Williams number 1, obviously. Jaden Daniels 2,
Mhm.
Drake May 3. No one's arguing those 3. Those are legit studs. I would probably still put Michael Penix 4 just because we've seen it, but JJ McCarthy's right there. My heart says JJ McCarthy's 4, but I'll put Penix 4 just because he's played, and we haven't seen McCarthy play. But then McCarthy would be 5. Oh, actually, Cam Ward's going to be 7 then because I put Bo Nix at 6. Bo Nix showed he can play in the NFL.
Mhm.
I put Cam Ward at 7. 7 in this draft if it was last year's draft. That's the difference between this year and last year. Is Cam Ward would go off at number 7.
That's crazy. I mean, I'm really glad you brought this up because I feel like that's just a great example for like it's not
Mm-hmm.
just this group, but like wide receivers, I feel very similar about. I don't feel like this
Mm-hmm.
class of wide receiver is deep. It doesn't feel like one, or maybe it
Yeah.
doesn't feel top heavy, right? It doesn't feel like the cream on top
That's
is
yeah,
very
that's totally fair.
rich.
Yeah. It's got a
Um,
good amount of potential players, but no like,
mhm.
whoa. That's a guy. You might think one or two guys, you're like, yeah, that guy can start right away. Other guys think, we'll see. We'll see if he can play. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm with you there.
Well, and I'm just looking through the list because I'm wanting to think about it. But yeah, I mean, I'd have Daniels one. I'd put May two. I guess I would put Knicks three. Like if we were looking at it again, and then I'd put May or Williams four.
Hmm.
I really struggle with McCarthy, man. I feel like I'd still put him at five just because the fact what we
Hmm.
saw at college, even with the injury, I feel like I would be more hopeful. Like I feel like that your postseason success has to matter at college. If
Yeah,
it
you're
doesn't,
going against the
then
best competition.
but like you're showing like when the lights are getting the brightest, you are not getting dimmer.
Yep.
You are continuing to
That is
bring your
JJ
play
McCarthy to a T. That's why I love him so much.
and like and I want to give. I'd still think I'd have to. Yeah, I'd take all of them. I'd still think I'd put Penix over it.
Hmm. Yep.
Which is crazy because I don't even think that Penix, in my mind, I don't think he deserved to be drafted in the first round last year. And that's not a knock on Penix, but
I
I
would
feel like
say
that
he
was a
shouldn't have been
reach.
top 10. I would say he should have been top 10. If he was at the bottom of the first round, that's where I
Yeah,
thought he was going to
if it was
go.
like 25 or lower, I would say that's
Yeah,
fair.
because
You're getting
before
the fifth year.
Minnesota traded up to 10, when they had the 11 and then 23, I thought, hey, at the 11, we're going to draft a stud defensive player. At 23, we're going to get Penix. That's where I thought the route we were going, and I was totally fine with that because that's
Mhm.
about where Penix should have gone toward the end of the first round.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
could not be happier with JJ McCarthy.
Well, I mean, I think it's going to be a similar. I think it could be a Bo Nix type of pick when people look back. Like solid
Mm,
pick, keep the train going, and there's potential for more. Um,
hmm.
I honestly feel bad for Penix. I feel like he's trapped. I don't feel like this is a good setup for him.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
I
because
agree.
you drafted him so high. Now that like the weight is even more on top of
Hmm.
him for succeeding.
And they
And
have no cap space to make their team better because there's a certain contract that they signed for a certain player they can't get rid of. And so their team is the same as last year. The team's like a 500 team. That's pretty much what
yeah,
it is. They got a few pieces, but they got a lot of holes.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I think it sounds like we're in agreement on the quarterbacks. Is there anything else you wanted to cover on that topic?
I don't think so. Yeah, I think I'm good there. I think we can move on to what you were kind of mentioning the other day about quarterbacks and their coaches that they go to. So you have the
So
floor, sir.
I think we're going to be on opposite sides on this, Andrew, but I am
Okay.
quite certain I'm right that it does not matter if you're a coach that drafts a QB in the first round, it does not guarantee that you're going to stick around. And I think honestly, it's a bad strategy to
Interesting.
draft a quarterback unless
Hmm.
it's like you're blown away. And the reason why
Hmm.
I'm saying that is I was thinking about this, but thinking about coaches that got let go. Um, but I know that we can throw off, for example, Urban Meyer with Trevor Lawrence was like not even given a chance to see the Trevor Lawrence experiment through.
Hmm.
When you're thinking about Chicago and what happened with Williams and the coaching
Eberflus.
staff,
Hmm.
Eberflus was given no real chance.
Well, that's his own
Um,
fault, but yeah.
I mean, I agree with you, but he wasn't given a chance. And then you look at
Right.
Will Levis and the Titans and Mike Vrabel, and that was a similar situation where it
Yeah.
did not work out. Um, so I think there's honestly quite a oh Gerard Mayo. Gerard Mayo is a great example that I was thinking about that drafted Drake May and didn't get a chance to see it
Mm-hmm.
through. Kind of showed some potential towards the end of the year, but they still showed him the door and didn't give him a chance. Um, I kind of feel like that it's dangerous to go in the mindset as a coach that you can honestly make it work. Like you can stick around, like the Giants, for example. I think it's a mistake for the
Hmm.
Giants to approach this draft thinking, hey, if we draft a quarterback, maybe that buys us another year. I don't think that's the case anymore. In fact, I would argue that if you draft a
Hmm.
quarterback and you're doing terrible after you'd been with the team for a year or two, maybe, that it makes them more likely to say, no, we can't afford to let you
Hmm.
stick around and corrupt this quarterback.
Yeah, that's fair. You made a lot of really good points. I would say I'm mostly in agreement, but I would say there's a caveat.
Hmm.
I would say it kind of depends on the situation because if you are a team that's been bad for a long time and then you draft a quarterback high and your team is still bad, I'm with you. That doesn't matter. You're gone. But other than the Drake May situation, which I'll touch on that, I think if you're a coach that's within the first 3 years, like your first contract, and you're just trying to change the culture a little bit and you draft a quarterback high, I think that does buy you 1 or 2 years, especially if you see potential in that kid. Like the kid, throws 25 touchdowns and 16 picks, kind of like what rookie quarterbacks tend to do. But you see something there. Okay, we're going to give you a couple years to develop him. If he's not developed by year 3, we're going to see if someone else can do it. I think that probably is more of the norm. But unfortunately, recently, some of these examples, which they're great examples that you laid out, are coaches that had a track record of just being bad. And they draft a quarterback high, and then their team doesn't really get better immediately. And so the owner's like, no, I don't want this anymore. Get rid of him. Like Eberflus, Caleb Williams showed some signs here or there, but the team wasn't that good. I don't know why people were hyping him up so much last year. A lot of people were saying they were a playoff team. I was like, what are you seeing? Do you know this team? I see this team all the time. Caleb Williams has potential. He could be great at one point, but not with that offensive line, not with that coach, not with old receivers. Anyway, that's a different point. But yeah, Eberflus, yeah, I mean, they started out really well, like 4-1, I think, and then he imploded. The team imploded. That was just gonna end poorly out the gate. I think with the Drake May situation, I could be wrong on this, but I think when Mike Vrabel was available, I think the whole staff at the Patriots just wanted him as their coach. I think if Vrabel wasn't available, I think they probably give Jerod Mayo another year because that last year was his second year, I believe, or was
No, it
it
was
his
his first.
first?
It was
Okay, it
his
was his
first year.
first. I think they would have given him one more year if someone like a Mike Vrabel, who is like very well known in that organization. That's their guy. It's almost like if Deion Sanders was available and the Cowboys didn't have an opening, but they said, "Hey, you go away. We want Deion Sanders," kind of a thing. I think it's kind of in that same vein. Um, he didn't get a fair chance. The team showed some fight. They just weren't a good team overall, and Drake May showed he can play in this league. I just think it's because Mike Vrabel was available. I think if he wasn't available, that I think Mayo gets one more year. But if they still aren't 500 this year, which probably won't be, then he gets gone. But I do hear what you're saying. I do agree mostly. I just think that the normal situations where you're a couple years down the road in your coaching journey and you draft a quarterback top 10 and he shows potential, I think a lot of times the GM or the owner says, "Okay, let's see what you can do with this kid before I get rid of you. And if you can't do anything, if you don't see improvement, we'll see if someone else can do it."
Interesting. Because like another coach I was just thinking about looking at this was
Hmm.
Frank Reich. Frank Reich, they drafted Bryce Young. It didn't even really get. I don't think he got the full season to be with Bryce Young. Like that's another example
Yeah.
where
Yeah, but he showed right away that I think there was more internal things as well. Like him and Bryce Young just weren't on the same page. Like they were not a good fit for each other. I th- Um, and as you see now with a different head coach, he's actually showing something. He's showing a little something. So I kind of think that last year is more of his rookie year because that first year was just a disaster. I felt bad for Bryce Young, especially when there's a CJ Stroud sitting there just tearing it up behind you, one pick behind you, and Texans are going to the playoffs and all this stuff. Um, I think for that example that I just think Frank Wright just didn't work with Bryce Young very well. I think right out the
Mm,
gate it was just a bad connection, a bad coupling, and I think the ownership saw that. But I do hear what you're saying. I'm not completely against your thought process on that. I just think that in normal situations, um, the coach gets a little bit of a leeway for maybe a year to see if they can develop this kid.
okay. No, I respect that. Um, I guess I just feel like I'm looking at this draft and
hmm Oh,
the
people got to
only
be careful.
team,
They got to be careful because these quarterbacks are not, most probably, not going to be like franchise changing like everyone wants the
no,
quarterback drafted to be. These
no,
aren't the Andrew Lucks. These aren't the Joe Burrows. These aren't the Jaden Daniels even. These are just starter level quarterbacks. They can win some games, but they need help around them. And when
totally.
you're picking at the top of the draft, you usually don't have a lot of help around you.
Yeah,
It's the
no, that's
same
fair.
Darnold situation all over again.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I'm interested to see which coach decides to make a dumb decision this year. I heard someone say who's going to be the Michael Penix pick, and my mind cannot stop thinking about it. Who's going to be the one that everyone's like, I cannot believe that they just picked that guy. Or
hmm
better yet, I'm going to call it who's going to be the Jalen Rager pick, the pick that
Oh,
makes you
ho,
cry,
ho, ho.
hurt inside, and then the person that you deserve to take and should have taken gets picked the very next pick, and it rips your soul for like the next 2 to 3
mm,
seasons.
mm,
Hmm.
hmm
Andrew, we could have had Devonte Smith and Justin Jefferson. Could have had
Well,
them.
hey, you got AJ Brown and Devontae Smith. That is
I
still not
know.
bad.
No, it's good. AJ Brown's amazing. I just
Uh-huh.
it pains me that they ever
hmm
thought that Jalen Rager was worthy of a first round pick. That just
hmm
pains me so much. Um, it's fine. I'm not bitter. I'm fine. It's fine. I've moved on.
Yeah. Just like I'm not bitter about the 2022 draft when Minnesota traded down like 18 picks when they could have gotten Kyle Hamilton, you know. Instead they got so they got Lewis Cine, who is barely a practice squad guy on
Hey,
the
he's on my
Eagles.
team.
Yeah.
He's on my team.
hmm
Not that he's going to do anything, but you know,
hmm
yeah. Anyway, I had to share that nugget with you. So
Yeah.
just thought that was something very interesting. But yeah, I'm not sure if there's anything else we wanted to talk about in this episode. I think that
Yeah, I don't think so. There's not really a whole lot going on, but this was a really good conversation, really good talker on some of these topics. But we are going to be working on a mock draft next in our next episode. That's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to change it
can't
up.
wait.
It's going to be opposite of last time. So looking forward to that. It's going to be awesome.
Sounds good. All right. Well, should we call this one a wrap?
I think that sounds good. Well, everyone, thank you guys for joining us on the Gridiron Grind with Andrew and Lance. We'll see you next time when we're going to do our mock draft 2.0.
Thanks, everybody. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a rating.
Yes,
Thanks so much.
please.